Hello everybody and welcome to a new content for Lag Poker. Today I am going to do a training session with GTOWizard. We are going to study the spot small blind versus button, and we are going to focus on the cbet strategy. Long time no seen, and sorry for that, but I had a couple of pretty intense months, and since this channel is like a hobby for me, I really didn't have time to create any content. But here I am, and today, as I said, we're studying with GTOWizard. It's a library of GTO solutions, and it's a pretty quick way to study, so if you're interested, you may see the link in the channel description, and you will also have a 10% discount. Having said that, let's start with the training. As I said, we will play small blind versus the button. We'll just focus on the flop. It's a 3-bet pot, and I chose basic solutions. Actually, I didn't, I will now. I will choose basic solutions because I think it's gonna be, let's say, easier to analyze spots with just a couple of sizes. Of course, you can study with GTOWizard with more complex sizings and solutions, but I think for YouTube this is a pretty good compromise. And let's confirm and let's start with the training. So in the first pot we have ace queen and the board is king 8 deuce. Our options are check, bet 20%, so a small bet. We have bet 54%, pretty much of a mid-size bet. Then we have the overbet, and we have the all-in. We have a randomizer here, and anyway, I think on this board, on average, we are betting range, and I would say that usually here, given the strong nut advantage we have, or range advantage in general we have, I think our main sizing is gonna be 54%, so the bigger size and not the small one. Of course, we are also gonna bet with ace queen suited, and that's it. Actually, it was pretty much 50-50, as you see. We could have both bet small or big, but yeah, let's say it was pretty much the same in terms of how much we bet small and how much we bet big. If we want to study the spot, we can go here, and we will see now how our range plays here. As you see, in all our range here, we can bet small or mid-size bet. It's pretty much the same in terms of EV, the strategy we pick. It's just important that we bet pretty frequently. Let's move on. I would say 10 hands, and that's gonna be it. So another spot, we have jack 10 suited with 3-bet and button calls again, same spot of course. And now we have a trickier board than before, queen 9-4. I don't think we're betting range here. Actually, I think we are going to do, being a 3-bet pot, kind of out of checking, but again, out of checking for it being a 3-bet pot, I think we're still gonna bet quite some time. And regarding sizing, I think we're mixing also here, sometimes small, sometimes a bit bigger than that. Maybe here is a bit more frequent to bet the 54%. And since I think even with this hand we're kind of mixing, we also have a randomizer here which tells us 98, so with this hand I would definitely gonna bet here. And yeah, once again, betting is fine. Actually, we are betting more than I thought. I thought we would check much more here with this specific hand. Let's see how our range plays here. And again, yeah, we're checking about 34% of the times. But the sizing which we prefer, given this solution, is the small one. That's a bit surprising. I thought on here we would have bet a bit bigger than that, more frequently at least. But yeah, that's fine. Anyway, here also, as you see, both sizes are used a lot. So I would say it's not a big problem if you choose one or the other. I mean, it's not gonna be a big mistake if you bet too much small or too much big. Let's move on. With another board, ace king. Here I think we are going to bet about half pot. It's very frequent for solvers to bet about this sizing, about half pot, sometimes even more on pair boards. It's pretty rare that they are bet just 20%, for example. So here I think we're betting with a very high frequency and decently high sizings, and I would say ace king still is going to be bet this way, even if Of course, there is going to be some checking in small percentages, but once again, we have 72% here in the randomizer, so we are definitely gonna bet. And as you see here in this pair board, the big bet is the favorite one. So keep in mind that usually when there is a pair board, especially one in the middle like this one, the sizing is definitely the big one, even if we are betting at a decent frequency. Let's move on with another hand. Now we have ace king, another pair board. This pair board is a bit higher in general, but still I think we're betting with a very high frequency. I think ace king of hearts is gonna be a bet more often than not, and I think even here it's gonna be about 54% the sizing. The randomizer says 24, so what should I ask myself is, are we checking in this spot more than 24%? I don't think. So given this assumption, I think we must certainly bet here, and I'm gonna bet. And as you see, there is basically no checking. The sizing, the favorite sizing is still the half pot bet. If you take a look at the range, again, you see that the big sizing is used with a decent frequency. We prefer, of course, to bet big with strong hands, strong draws, and to bet small with more mid-value hands. Let's say like that. For example, you can say that ace queen uses mainly a big sizing, while queen jack uses mainly a small sizing with a worse kicker. Or if we bet something like jacks, of course, we go for the small size. And we go for the small size also when you have very strong blockers like queen 10 or pocket queens, we always bet small. But if you have a decent hand like aces, kings, strong top pairs and strong draws, we like the big one. And that's as it works pretty much always. Let's go back and move on with this solution. Let's see what we have here. We have pocket nines. This board kind of sucks. And I don't think I'm betting necessarily a range here. And we have 7 on the randomizer, and again the question is going to be, are we checking with this combination with pocket nines more than 7% of the times on this board? I think yes. I think here the check is going to be way bigger than 7%, so if we have a 7 on the randomizer, technically speaking, we should just check here. Even if, again, on this board I think we're betting at a decent frequency, I think this hand can be checked. Definitely. And as you see, it's pretty much a 50-50%, 50-50 better check, bet small money bet. But even if we go to look at the whole solution, as you see, there are some hands which are checked a decent amount of times. We like to bet a lot, as I said, and the sizings are pretty much various. But yeah, you know, these kind of hands, pocket nines on a board like this, like low equity hand, let's say, it's gonna be difficult to improve. We don't need too much protection because, you know, whatever our opponent is folding has very few equity versus pocket nines. And so low playability, not that much need of protection in general, difficult to get value. It's of course one of those hands we should check the most. And, you know, it's pretty intuitive, even if the solution doesn't look that easy at the first glance. Let's move on. And we have now pocket sixes. That's pretty interesting. We have a board in which we are probably going to check kind of a lot. And if you're checking a lot, we should definitely check also sometimes our strongest hands. And again, we have only 2 on our randomizer. This means that in general here we should ask ourselves the same question: are we checking on this board, or do we want to check on this board pocket sixes more than 2% of the times? I think yes. So if we have a 2 on the randomizer, this is gonna be a check, because, you know, it's pretty unlikely that we're gonna bet sixes 100% of the times if we play like a solver. And in general also, even if we don't want to be this strict with the randomizer, I think since in this specific board there is going to be a lot of checking, I would say checking a decent amount of times sixes is what we should do. I wouldn't be shocked here if sixes is checked about half of the times, if not even more. We check, yeah, it's about half the times, And let's go to see the solution, which I think is gonna include a lot of checking in general. And as you see, yes, that is 62% of the times we're just going to check. And because of that, even a hand as strong as pocket sixes should be checked about half the times. So keep in mind this, if you are in a spot in which you are not c-betting that much in general, you must be sure to also check enough your top value. If not, you're going to be exploitable. Of course, as long as you want to play optimally. I'm not saying that in practice you should check sixes this much or anyway value this much versus a real opponent. Remember, GTO is very different from practice when it comes to real tables, and it's going to depend a lot on your opponent, your field, and so on. Let's move on. We have now another interesting board. We have a 9-5-5. I think we are going to bet this board pretty aggressively. And this is going to be tricky because, well, the sizing, as we saw before in similar pair board, is probably going to be 50% if you choose to bet. So the question is, do we check or do we bet 54%, and how frequently, of course? And we have 30 on the randomizer, so are we checking ace-5 suited here at least 30% of the times? I'm not sure. I think it's close. Probably not. I think we're betting more than that. But it's gonna be a close one. Maybe it's gonna be like 20% check and 80% bet, but let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm gonna be surprised here. Yeah, you see, it's just 14% check, and mainly we just bet half pot. And just to show again that the sizing we use and the strategy is very similar here than in the other kind of board. You see a lot of betting, almost 80% bets, and when we bet, unless we have precisely pocket nines, we typically bet with the big bet. So I would say in practice we just bet this sizing, and that's it. Let's move on to another hand. We have now ace queen, and that's a pretty tricky board. That really sucks, I would say. We're not checking range here for sure. So since our randomizer says 92% of the times, our question is, are we checking ace queen more than that? I would say no. I think there is going to be a decent amount of betting, certainly more than 8%. And the sizing is another question. I think on a board like this, we're probably gonna bet a lot small, especially when we have a mid-value hand like this. So I think the solver here wants to bet small in this situation. And the frequency, I think it's gonna be a decent frequency, probably more than 50% of the times. But let's see. We bet, yes, of course. And we bet almost every single time this specific combination. The sizing is the small one, and let's see the whole strategy here, because it's a pretty tricky board. As you see, we just bet range. Yeah, the board is connected, which may lead us to think that we're going to check a lot, but still, if you think about it, indeed, you know, we have a pretty strong advantage in terms of strong hands, because we have aces, we have kings, we have queens, we have jacks. Our opponent is going to 4-bet some of those, and because of that, you know, it's actually logical that we can be very aggressive here. And again, keep in mind that when the solver bets small or big, and big together at the same time, like in this situation, usually the big bet is made with strong hands. For example, you can see king queen prefers a big bet, while ace queen or ace jack prefer the small bet. If you have very strong blockers, like when you have a set, you also bet small usually. Makes sense, of course. Ace 10, which is a strong hand with no blockers, of course it bets big, mainly. Let's move on to the another hand. Let's play a couple of more hands. Let's go to 10, as I said. Well, that's a bit anticlimactic in the sense that we already saw board similar to this. We know we are going to bet 54% the vast majority of the times. Is it interesting here that we have a 19 on the randomizer? And do we check ace queen off with no spade and no heart at least 19% of the times? I think yes. I think even if it's not going to be probably the favorite line in general. If you're trying to play GTO and we have here a randomizer, I think we should check, because I think the check is probably going to be around 30% maybe in this spot. And so if you just a 19, you definitely should check here. And it's 31%. I almost hit it. And yeah, as you see, we still prefer to bet. If you want to simplify in one single strategy, it is gonna be bet 54% every single time. If you want to play GTO, and if you try to play GTO and be more mixed, you see, you should, when you have a very low run, you have a very low number on the randomizer, checking is what you should do. And it's not a mistake, it's just not the action you should do the most. And that's why we have a randomizer, and that's why we use a randomizer. When you don't want to simplify this much, we use the randomizer to be closer to GTO. Anyway, let's move on to the last hand. Let's see if you can make 10 out of 10. We have 9-5 deuce rainbow, which is gonna be a board that we see bet, I think, I'm not sure we bet range, I don't think we bet range, there's gonna be some checking. King queen off is probably one of the hands we check the most. It's gonna be tricky, because for sure we're gonna do all three options we have here are going to be acceptable to a certain degree. Again, we're going to try here to play GTO, so we have a 59. Do we check at least 59% of the times? I think we are close to that. It's gonna be a close one. I would say yes. I would say king queen off is one of those hands that we might want to check this much, but I'm really not sure, because we also block a lot of villains continuing range, and the board is so dry. So yeah, no, I don't think we're checking this much, to be honest. Probably we're more in the 40-50 range of checks with this, but I'm not sure, we're gonna see. And if we bet, I think we're gonna bet mainly, but it's gonna be mixed again, 54%. Let's see. Yes, it was about 50% check, a bit more checks than I thought, but yeah, apart from that, it was about 50-50. And once we bet, we bet decising. Luckily, I had a 59, and if I knew this percentage, it would have been a bet, because we are checking. We are not checking more than 59, we are checking 55, so it would have been a bet. But yeah, of course, that's just luck. I thought that we weren't checking this much anyway. And that's pretty much it. I hope you like this kind of video. I hope my Italian accent is not too strong for you, but I think it is, unluckily. But again, if you like this video, please let me know. If you have any questions, critiques, anything, let me know in the comment. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.